So if you take all of that we have covered this far, and we start looking at these, I'm going to use the word examples, because again, this is just a very, very, very slight few. I'm going to use 3 things to compare. And I'm going to start with the 10th commandment about honor the father and mother, and and then if you're looking at one timeline of commandments, because they kind of changed them up, there's different structures in some. And then the other one is to remember the Sabbath day to keep the holy rest on the 7th day. Okay, and if we pause there for a moment, let's take both of those and decipher. One is honoring the mother and the father, and then one is remembering the day to rest. So, honoring the mother and the father, when raising up as a Christian in a Catholic church, and my parents were not super religious, okay? My grandparents were. It meant, from my understanding, the best that I can remember and perceive is like doing things to make your parents proud, or doing things to not rebel against them, honoring them and not taking advantage of them, and all of these other things. What's not being also shared within that is the duality of what that holds, okay? And what's not within that is that we also hold our own parent inside of us within our nervous system. We have our right side as the masculine types of energies that we all embody and that we all have. And we have the left side with the femininity that we all have and we all embody, okay, in different degrees and angles, okay? Now, I'm not talking about the way that I like to use the word terminology for this because it's ridiculous to me that this is even a thing, but how gay people or straight people act differently. This is nothing to do with this. This is simply emotions and frequencies of which we are. We have a feminine and masculine side. So in this commandment, the whole duality is not just honoring your mother and father who birthed you into this world. It is also honoring yourself and your parents who birthed you into this world, honoring you back in a balanced state, okay? Because everything holds a wholeness, okay? We do not have a one part of anything that's not possible. Unless it dies or something. Like we have to have a wholeness structure of some sort. So keep that in mind while we're going through and looking at the Buddhist and the Quran aspects of this same number 4 commandment, okay? Oh yeah, and then the remembering the day to rest. So that one is to remember that we need rest. We need to be in the present moment. That is rest. A full day dedicated to yourself, alignment, inner work, shadow work, inner child work, connecting to your parts work, somatic work, facial work, breath work, sound healing, all of those things connected with nature. They all mean rest, and they mean rest because it allows you then to connect in a deep divine way that you cannot do when you are living within only a human state, or when you're around a bunch of different people. It is a true connection that you are allowing to occur between you and only your version of your higher power, whether it be source, your creator, your God, your ancestors, your higher self, whatever it is for you. It does not matter what you call it and what you align with, whatever you connect with as your higher power, okay? Whatever that is for you, that's what that means. Taking one solid day, minimum, preferably, but at least that one day. Okay. And again, the duality of that, what all that entitles as well. All right, holding that space for others. Just as an example. Now let's stop into the Buddhism. That is the right speech with beneficial, timely words, presence, in order to live in a state of the number four's fullness, of its wholeness, of what I'm going to call of the universal law, the wholeness of it. That goes into also honoring the mother and father, honoring yourself, and honoring the day of rest. Because when we can use our right speech, we have to, and we can only do our right speech in a state of presence. We can only do that when we are speaking from a state of a heart resonance. And we can only do that when we are honoring ourselves, our parts, our pieces, our emotions. And that's what beneficial timely means, because if we are speaking from a state of past or future, we are not speaking at the timely manner of what is occurring within the present moment, the most important and vital moment. And when we are not doing that, we don't hold the capability to honor our parents or our inner parents, ourself, or anybody else around us. Because when we do not hold presence, we don't have this timely state, and we don't have the awareness of using our words and our energy in a way to bring that honorment and the whole totality of what honorment is, we quote unquote waste people's time. And our society is so full of so many things that are completely wasting people's time. And wasting is simply just taking or giving at an exponential unbalanced rate. And this ties back into the day of rest as well. I don't want to leave that out. Because when we are in our present moment, in our timely manner, in that beneficial structure of honoring ourselves, we can then allow ourselves to always rest when we need. Not when somebody says we can, not after we think that we have finally done enough, not when the day is done, but right when we need to, how we need to, and just doing it allows us to keep the practice of a daily routine throughout our day to go back into our present, the same sensations and connections that we have with our present state of awareness, connecting to our version of God, Creator, higher self, source. And then we can hold that ultimate respect for not just ourselves and what we're doing within this moment, but every single person and every occurrence around us. We can then gain the present from that, the gift from that present moment of awareness. And when we get to anchor that in, we get to breathe that in and experience the feeling of what that is. And we get to sit in the peaceful resonance of the ultimate love, of the highest joy that we can experience within this earth. Because this earth can only hold to a certain height of frequency. After that frequency, you leave this earth in a state of physical manner. And this earth also holds the lower frequencies, the lower realms. It gives you that beautiful duality of the lowest sensations that your soul can feel to Earth's highest state. And you get to experience what your soul would otherwise perceive as the lowest emotion of love, of joy, because what we feel as the highest state in a humanness, as the biggest, bestest love, that joyful love, the highest state of the sphere of emotions, that is actually the lowest level that our soul can experience on any other planet, from my belief and understanding, talking quantumly. So with that, let's go a little bit deeper and let's go into the Quran. And I apologize if I am messing that up. This is honesty and justice. And just for fun, let's real quick, ancient Egypt's easy for people to resonate with. Let's now go to Mott and Thoth's teachings, as well as their divine counterparts. And different parts of them, let's use Thoth as an example, also Hermes. Now, when we're speaking about honoring our parents, honoring ourselves, holding that day of rest, living within the present moment, using the right speech, not wasting our energy, not wasting our time, and not wasting anybody else's time, by living in the present moment, we then and only then can hold the ability to hold a state of honesty. Because otherwise, we are being pulled and influenced by all of the things around us, by all the things that we think have to be done in this way, in this structure, day in and day out. And we're not in the present moment. We're not listening to our bodies. We're not connecting to our bodies. We're not honoring ourselves. We're not honoring our parents. We're not honoring the world around us. And so therefore, there is no way we can speak or live within our truth or right state of judgment, which is the same as truth, when formed from a state of balance and peace and heart resonance, while honoring ourselves and our mothers and fathers and everyone around us and everything around us. We then and only then can hold that honesty. And that honesty is the pureness. And we cannot even begin to touch it without first honoring ourselves. So if we are only getting one piece of the puzzle, just in this one short, very quick surface level example, how will we ever know our truth? How will we ever know ourselves? How will we ever know how? So if we're not allowing ourselves to take understandings from multiple different sources and viewpoints and atrospects, we then and therefore are only able and allowing ourselves to hold another human being's interpretation of whatever very small microscopic viewpoint that they are being able to perceive it from, unless they hold the full duality of understanding that there is no right way or wrong way, as long as there is no harm, as long as there is no violence, as long as there is no fear, sadness, or anger created from it. And that doesn't mean that there is not emotions of those things that will occur. Because when one lives within all of these dualities and all of these ways, they do not hold on to states of those lower emotions. That goes also into the theology of the different deities or gods and goddesses and things like that. They all hold different frequencies within that version of themselves based on what they were living through within that lifetime or within that timeline. And then they have those different aspects of which they can assist with and occur with. I'm going to use as example as in, there's the theology of Yeshua, Jesus, was the same as Thoth and the same as Buddha. And it all goes right back to that understanding that everything is balance, everything is direction, everything is about awareness or unawareness. And then it goes to that truthfulness and that honesty and that judgment. And then if you go and you look at Thoth and Mott and you look at what their teachings are, what Yeshua's take the Bible and Christianity out and you simply just look at Yeshua's teachings with Mary Magdalene's, and then you look at what Christianity used to be and where that even formulated from, and then what that led from and where that is, and how all of the different aspects of the different religions or non-religions, native ways of being. And there's just different stories, similarities, different people, places, and things, but there's patterns. And those patterns are there because, again, there's not one, you can't have one piece of one thing. You either have a wholeness in the center of it, or a wholeness at the biggest, broadest aspect of it. If you're like the light rays, they start at the center of the wholeness of the black and they go up into the light. That's how we are as human beings. That's how absolutely everything is. It's how the earth is. Like you look at the earth, right? You cannot say that this is not how the earth is. It is how the earth is. It is dark on the bottom and it goes up to the brightest light at the top. We as humans are that same way. Animals, plants, all the same exact way. And it is all just frequency. It is why the chakras, if you resonate with that, they have different colors. They hold different frequencies. Those are the colors of the frequencies of the rainbow, from the light, from the dark, up through the big cone part where it is all of the colors but in a iridescent form. Just as there's different aspects of us within our emotions of this human being, we can become the lowest sensations that we can ever feel and act from those states and be completely what we perceive in humanness that is unacceptable, and we punish those behaviors. Or we can also experience the very, very high, bubbly, overly giving, extreme opposite. And those are just dualities. And if we don't find a balance within that, no matter where we're coming from, we can't ever hold a state of what these commandments and things from the Quran and from the Buddhists, with all in their number 4 category, we can't hold any of it. But we have been stripped from our awareness of not only what that means, but what that means in a state of simplicity of frequencies are everything, and emotions is just the terminology that humans have put to feelings of frequency. Frequencies are feelings, frequencies are sounds, frequencies are vibrations, frequencies are, absolutely everything holds a frequency, no matter what it is. It's just a different, frequency shifts. Okay, so we have different terminologies for different things in our human speaking, but if we strip ourselves from our verbal communication as such as words, and we go back to just resonating with a vibrancy of sound, silence, touch, we go back to that original state of our being, and that's what being in the present moment does. It allows you to sit with that honesty within inside of yourself and feel within you what does not feel well within the states of anger, within the states of sadness, and within the states of fear. And we are able to feel that within inside of our bodies, pinpoint by feeling it in our bodies, connecting with it, allowing it to become in our awareness, and breathing it all up into our heart and allowing us to feel the compassion of which it is asking to be felt in. And we connect with those pieces and our parts of us, and we begin to connect with our younger selves, our inner child, which is our pureness of our soul, of this lifetime's peace. And if we then can connect with how we would care for if we were holding ourselves as this newborn baby, and then if we can go deeper and we can connect with how it feels holding ourselves inside this itty bittiness, and how we would nourish and hold and protect this itty bitty frequency as it grows, and what we would give it, what we do get to give it. And we begin connecting with our mother's womb and our father's womb, or in our father's placenta, because that is where we came into within this lifetime. And then we can go deeper. And we can connect with our parents, our birth parents, in a whole entirely different way, from connecting with them from that state of which we originated in. And then if we want to go on a soul's resonance of healing, because that mother and father is generational, and we can connect with our grandparents, great-grandparents, eons and eons and eons of our bloodlines. And then we can go in even deeper on our soul level, and we can connect with multiple timelines of which our soul has lived, and we can completely come into a coherence within ourselves, and we can not only help and assist our lineage line and our bloodlines in past, present, and future understandings, freeing all of us from a construct of imprisonment, of stuck emotions, of rippling effect, of damage after damage after damage, and not just in lineage lines, but collectively in the entire everything. Because what we do affects everybody. What somebody is doing now across the country from me on any aspect of it is affecting me right now in some degree, in some percentage. It is why being able to live in the present moment is such an important force. And just covering these three simple dualities of, not even dualities, but different theologies of number fours, commandments, number fours in the Buddhism, and then number fours in the Quran, we simply are just touching the very surface base of what it means to be able to embody just these three abilities within inside of ourselves, and how powerful just that is, and how much it is tied to emotions and the nervous system, and being aware of our emotional intelligence in a self-centered, purified, therapeutic form. And we can regenerate our storylines from this state. And what I was talking to the kids about in my expressive emotions class yesterday, we were talking about heart boundaries. When we lock those states in that we want, that we not want only, but we desire, and we allow ourselves to feel the possibility of those things being, we can then lock it in by forming these boundaries and barriers within our heart in a beautiful way of, I will not allow anything within my life that is an occurrence, again, within a daily system, friends, family, etc., to be within my presence if they are not honoring my boundaries that allow me to live within this state of how I want to live, within this balance of honorment. And what that looks like for me, as I used an example, is anybody who harms the earth in any atrospective way, for my heart, I set boundaries where some people I live and I love very distantly from, love them immensely. But due to the harm and the things that they do to the earth and to the people, because it is one, I have very strong distant boundaries with them, and then degrees from there, and then of course that's just a very small bit, right, piece of where I set a boundary around. But in that class yesterday, I then told them, okay, so set your boundary with that feeling of where you will not allow anybody to step at, and there's a range, right? So we covered the ranges. And then in that itty bitty section within your heart, now design different patterns or codes, or place some glitter, or put a sequence, because we were doing artwork with an art project, and about boundaries and hearts and how love and hate is all the same. And so I told him, like, and then so while you're doing this, recreate even a better version now. Go further with it. So set the boundary that nobody can pass this if they're doing this. What is the slightest thing that you will keep in at least some sort of regular contact with? And for me, with my boundary with harming the earth, it is cigarette butts. And it is cigarette butts only because that I will semi-allow in a distant structure of still being in communication, because so many people are just so unaware of why they flick the cigarette butts. And so my boundaries are formed from also a moral standpoint, mixed with the teaching degree of society of where we're at. So when I ask people, why do they throw their cigarette butts out, but then put everything else in the trash can? Not saying that everybody does that, but I'll watch people throw their cigarette butts on the ground, but then walk forever to go throw away a paper cup. And I get very, very, very confused, because that paper cup will dissolve and turn into soil food, but that cigarette butt will always hold those chemicals leaking into the earth, and they will never disintegrate. And so I get very confused on why you wouldn't just take the cigarette butt to the trash can as well, or why you wouldn't do it oppositely. Not saying to throw paper cups on the ground, but just saying like, and they always just say, well, that's just what we do. That's what we, and it's what we do. Always. Well, it's what we do. And they'll ask, well, why though? I'm like, why? And they have no idea. And so, and then I explained to them like why it's so important not to do that. Like and then they're like, oh, okay. Like I've never had anybody tell me like, I mean, I had two people tell me like, I don't care. Like, but for the majority, I've had people say, oh, I didn't realize that. And so I have, boundaries based on that behavior. If they keep doing it, I cannot hang out with them. And so I was using that as an example. So then in my example, to go past that boundary, I created what it feels like to have everybody around me who takes care of the earth even more than I do, who cares about wildlife and even the very, very microscopic mechanisms that live in the soils, like who cares about that life from a heart space. And it hurts me when people hurt even those smallest things. And so I form my new world within my new section of that small heart, or small piece of my heart within that boundary, a world implemented within it, within whatever design I choose for that piece, from a feeling state of everybody around me caring for the world and the earth and nature and humanity and everything, and wanting everything to be just the best that it can be for absolutely every being on this planet. I was like, I put that energy into that itty bitty space, and I recreate that atrospect of my heart, because my heart is my world. And so therefore I can then create the world around me. And so then we create the world around us in that same atrospect within our artwork yesterday. And that goes to being able to step into that place of judgment. We then, and only then, once we live within that state of being able to feel a higher state of being after passing that barrier of that boundary that we hold from ourselves, so that we can then have that boundary to come up and levitate over and stand on, and that boundary then becomes our sturdy foundation. And then, until only then, can we hold a state of what it means to be able to judge. Because we can only then state the next level of the climb. Okay? What we perceive as judgment when it's at a balanced state allows us to hold the ability to understand other states of awareness. And that punishment is not the answer if it is not being met with the proper awareness level that is needed to meet in duality in the center of why that decision was created. And that is what is called shadow work, parts work, pieces work, inner child work, generational work, soul work, all of these things. That is what it's called, labeled as. It is simply awareness of your emotions, broken down into parts and labels to make things very confusing. My daughter's father is in a program right now, and he was like, yeah, I really, really like what we're doing in here. And he's like, I wouldn't have realized how important all of this was if it wasn't for you telling me all of these years, all of this stuff. And so I was like, well, like, what kind of things are you guys doing? And so he was reading off some of the assignments, and I was like, yeah, like, that's journaling work for generational, healing and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, but like, it needs to go deeper, because he was already aware of the deeper aspects of what they're giving in these programs. And I was like, well, it's just emotional awareness. Like, if you understand the basis of emotional awareness and what that entitles and what the nervous system is and what the nervous system does in the full entire body, all the way out to the fascia and what the fascia entails, and then past that, like, you'll be able to hold the depthness at no matter what level they give it at, because then that awareness is always going to be there in everybody's state, but they're going to have at least some place to start. And then from there, they're going to be able to put the pieces together step by step, if they choose to keep going, into learning and understanding deeper parts. And I was like, and he was like, well, they don't offer that. And, but he was like, but at least this is a starting point. And I was like, yeah, because there's a lot of resources out there. And one thing that I'm working on is putting together a YouTube programmer system where I guide through all of this so that the awareness is at least there, and then it's free for the taking. And then people who they can utilize it as a resource, and then an outreach to different people who can help and assist them with different things. But it all goes back to that connection. And I was speaking with a friend yesterday, and first she had asked me if I do things like in a present moment, because I was kind of telling her about my full vision at the best that I could in the most undetailed way, because it holds a lot. It holds a fullness, it holds a wholeness. And I was like, yes, I live my days, unless I have to do a lot of grid work and bridge work. I can't do my humanly tasks. But on all of the days that I am not doing those things, I am consistently living in a state of meditation, prayer, so to say, same thing, in a state of awareness and groundedness, and focusing on like what I'm doing within this moment. So everything that I do when I'm working, I'm doing it in a meditative state, as in a humanness working, okay? As well as in my other working. But when I'm telling people like how do I do all the things that I do, like, that's how I do it. I do things in a state of flow, of a very, very, very in tune meditative prayer state. And I was only able to understand how to do that state when I started understanding that there was much more pieces to the full duality spectrum sphere than just the commandments that I was given growing up. And then when I started looking into different religions and things, Wiccan, Buddhism, and Hoodoo, and all sorts of different Native American, all sorts of different things, I realized that a lot of the things that all of these other atrospects were giving out, I very much resonated with since I was a child. And so it allowed me to feel that I wasn't wrong for the way that I was feeling. I just wasn't given all of the awareness that I needed to be able to sit in this state of honesty and honorment, and being able to honor my mother and father at the extent that we give one another, and not holding the guilt or the judgment on them because everything has been unbalanced within our lineage line. And then I started making the conscious decision, like I wanted to make that better. And at that time, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. Years later, I realized that from the terminology of shadow work and generational work and things like that. And then I learned about like emotion body code, and it's things that I have been doing eons, my entire life, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing, simply because I didn't have the awareness of labels or terminology, just because I only was given the Catholic viewpoint of things. And then it made me think, well, that's how our world is so separated. We have all these different congregations and all these different religions and all these different theories and all these different aspects. And some are coming from one book, but they're all being taught with different versions based on who is their preacher or father. And I don't want to insult anybody, so I'm not familiar with any terminology past that. Because to me, people are just people. And so, like, calling people certain things, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you are the president. I don't care if you're the Pope. I don't care if you are the most famous movie person. I don't care. I don't care. Like, I might want to hang out with you because, like, you might be, like, this person that, like, I think we would just really, really click with, and we would have in-depth, insane, amazing conversations and experiences. But like past that, I don't care who you are. And so when I'm listening to people, I've always been that way. All I have ever heard is simply what they're speaking, as if I'm speaking to anybody else, because as humans, that's all we are. We are just simply humans. And we can hold different energies and different levels of awareness, and we can come into a different state of coherence of somebody else, and we can share information and we can share our own interpretations. But it doesn't make any of us right or wrong. It simply allows everybody to experience different parts and pieces of the whole totality of the wholeness of the world. There are not two people who believe the exact same thing, because it is not possible. We as humans don't even see the colors the exact same way. How can we experience and feel the things the exact same way? And what we experience and we feel are the beliefs, not spoken words, not written words. That is just that is where a starting point, and then our interpretation of those words. So if we are only allowing ourselves to listen to one set of words, but only from one interpretation, to me, that becomes very dangerous. And that causes a lot of chaos and a lot of fear, because you're in your nervous system, because it's setting a state of you're not okay, you're not safe, because you're not allowing yourself to connect with what that feels like for you. And you're in a state of fear, being told that anybody who believes opposite from you is evil or doing harm, or is going to be harmed, or going to be damned, or whatever it might be, or be cursed, or whatever. And it causes a lot of discernment to be disconnected from. And that discernment is what is held, and only held, in the right and proper, and when I say proper, I mean balanced state, to be able to hold any form of judgment, as in what may or may not be perceived as right or wrong. And then from that state, we have to always then remember that there is a coherence, and that's where that filter begins. So if you're looking at Mott, and Thoth's teachings, simply just as one. And if you're going to look at Yeshua as the cross as an example, it's still the heart. We can't change the structure of our human body, but the heart is the center of the balance. And we can't tip a scale without moving the other side. But what we haven't been told is that scale doesn't just go this way, it goes all the way around. And it causes a frequency of a clock, of a screening, of a cleansing, of different levels of depth. And that is how matter is formed, right? We have different forms of states of being. Same as light, right? We have very, very dark colors all the way out to that pristine, very iridescent. And what we cannot deny is that the dark and the light have the same colors, but in different matters, in different frequency levels, lower to higher. But that does not make things right or wrong. It just makes things as they are. So once we can live within that coherence of that understanding of when the scales tilt, there's also the duality of the light above it, and then at that vertical, understanding what that light holds to that weight that we carry in our heart, the shadows, the hate, the fear, the anger, the sadness, the direction of the frequency of what that is needing, the light, the color, the sound, the touch, the breath, the movement, all of it, and what that is. And then you bring it into that heart center. Again, the heart center holds the wholeness of you. It holds the ability to hold and feel and resonate the love. Okay? So when we feel into our body, if we go ahead and we close our eyes, and we sink down, we place our hands on our heart, and we just breathe for a moment, and we allow. We begin to slow our breath, and at first it might be going straight up into our chest, and that is okay. It is just not a place that we want to stay. So then we bring awareness to it, and we kind of hold it in our breath. And we feel, why is it needing to be breathed there? And we notice that begins to soften. And we notice that it becomes like a breath of its own. And as we breathe in, we can feel our chest begin to move, almost as if wings of a butterfly. In and out. And we ask, where does it need to go? And we follow it. And we breathe in there. And now we place our hand there, in that space that it has showed you, to gain a deeper connection of the awareness of what that emotion is ready for you, and you are ready for it. And you grab whatever age of yourself is coming towards you, and you wrap that version of yourself in your arms. And you squeeze that version of yourself, and you breathe into that space, and you breathe in with a state of love, and you suck out all of the pain that that version of you was holding. And you bring it back up into your heart as you carry yourself. And you watch yourself transform from that state of fear, sadness, and anger And you watch that hate transform into these beautiful shades. And you watch yourself at that age transform into the most beautiful iridescent light. And then you watch yourself transform into how it would have felt to have lived and experienced what you desired in that state for yourself, what you daydreamed of. And you allow yourself to feel what that feels like, to live in that experience. And you breathe into your heart all of that feeling of what that feels like. And you give it to your version of yourself that you are looking at now. And you watch that self form into your fullness. And you merge within that self into you. Fully now protecting that version of yourself forever. And you breathe in as you hug yourself deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. The boundary that holds this portion of yourself in this utter confinement of captivity, of nourishment, of strength and confidence and love, wrapping it completely in the higher frequency that it once was only formed in hate. And you bring that into your heart's resonance and you allow yourself to breathe here for however long you need. And you live from this state of being forever, honoring that boundary that you have set with inside you, your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, on and on and on, your children, and everybody that shares your bloodline in some aspect, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. You begin to then be able to connect with that part. And you begin to connect with the duality of the understanding of the suffocation of emotions, the ties that bound women from allowing themselves to express their emotions, allowing women to express their full abundance of nourishment and care and honorment, and not allowing men to experience their emotions, because if one could not, the other could not, as the teachings come from the mother. And not allowing the truth of who you are, because hierarchy became more important than the valuableness of your soul. And once you sit with that resonance, you can then sit with the understanding that punishment, and only punishment, within a state of wanting to retaliate, and retaliation is never needed, especially alone. But that this understanding and that this teaching, and then working through those emotions that are felt, those raw, very intense, and at times what we perceive as scary, that we don't want to feel emotions that we have been blocking for eons, not just within us, but our parents and our grandparents, and on and on and on and on and on. But when we allow ourselves to perceive that as our gifts, we allow ourselves to feel it and being able to hold it within that most embraced container that's needed. And if we have others around us who are able to do that for us in ceremonies or close friendships or mothers, fathers, etc., relationships, husbands and wives, that is beautiful. But if we do not, that it is okay that we can hold that for ourselves with these teachings, with these understandings, that there are so many parts that make up our universe and ourselves. And that if we only hold one of them, that we are defying ourselves from our own ability to hold an honest state, a state of honorment, a state of respect, a state of balance, a state of justice, a state of beneficial, timely use, of respecting time on this beautiful planet, and also respecting all that it offers us. And if we don't have just that one basic, I mean, this is, like I said, very surface level. This is all just covering 3 very basic aspects of what we consider as humans the number 4 on rules of regulation of, I forget what they're called now, commandments in different religions, ways of life. Like, imagine the awareness that can be held, the love and the nourishment and the openness and the care and the connection that we can hold with every single person, every single animal on this planet. And we've all heard the talk of Gerald the dolphin. I have been envisioning that world of living in coherence with animals in all since I can remember. I was born feeling this way, and I have always been so confused on why peace everybody was like, that's not possible. And as a child and as of now, my viewpoint on that has never shifted. It has only become more aware of how simple it is. And it is simply as simple as what I teach and offer in my expressive emotion classes to very young children within an hour time span. And of course, that's very surface level, and there's much more that will come with it. But just gaining that awareness and watching how they live their lives and how they view the world, and not from my teaching, but of course their parents have done phenomenal jobs. But I'm just saying, like, once they make connections with the emotions, and as well as, some of the parents that talk to me about the things that they pick up through the classes as well. And they're like, it's really, really helping. And the families that I talk with, say like, it's really, really helping. And the people I've talked with in my life, they're like, it's really, really helping. And it's simply just emotional awareness and the understanding of the awareness that that it's okay. It's a safe space to allow anyone who is not doing harm to another to believe in what they believe in, what is their higher power, because we held no right to decipher or decide what is somebody else's truth. Again, when there's not harm being installed upon one another from their viewpoint. Okay? I feel like that's very important to understand, and I do think it'll be more understandable if and when, depending on what classes you come to, on what degree and level you get to within this, and if you do it on your own. But like I said, once you go into even the deeper parts of it, there's just so much that we can just hold for one another. And we can make connections with people, not just here, but like we can make connections with people around the world, and we can create this beautiful networking trading system as like one, like as this planet was designed to be, as humans were designed to be. We were never, ever, ever, ever meant to be within the state that of which we have been in. We have never meant to take from another and kill them. We were never meant to experience or live within those things. Our nervous system is not meant to hold onto those things, let alone live from those things. We are only meant to experience those things in very short time spans, as such as if a tiger is chasing you. That's how quickly fear, anger, sadness is meant to express from our bodies, no matter what it is, due to in certain degrees, right? And the faster that we allow ourselves to become that awareness, the faster that we can do our healing, because time and healing goes very, very fast. Energy healing works so swiftly and so quickly, and energy healing is just awareness. And that's all that it is. It is simply just awareness of emotions and frequencies and understanding light and sound and vibration of quantum science or whatever theology you want to use. But we sing in churches because our voices are sound, and our sound is resonance, and the resonance is healing of our heart. And that is one thing that I have noticed whenever I talk with people who resonate more so within like a Christian church, Catholic church type of thing, and they're always very confused on why I don't call myself a Christian within the American viewpoint of a Christian, and why I don't go to a church. And it's because I do not align with one thing or another, and I do not agree with a lot of the things that certain Christianity faiths churches are teaching, because it's only one aspect, and a lot of it is stemmed from a fear state. So I like to connect with people of all different beliefs, and I love to learn from them. I love to learn from the state of which they are. And I have dreamt as a child to go to different places on the earth and just sit with these different cultures and these different tribes and get to learn from them. And I would love to go to tribes that do not speak a lick of language. Because I know that I would be able to communicate them better, and they would be able to communicate with me in a way that I have never been able to experience yet in this state. Because I connect better without verbal language. It's very hard for me to use my words. It's very hard for me to speak. It's taken me a very, very, very long time to be able to put all of what I'm speaking about into words. It's how I've felt and I've understood for a very, 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 very long time. But and my daughter's the same way. It's hard to put things into words because it's so massive. Because when you live in a wholeness, and those of us who resonate with the term like empathy, a very empathic person, again, there's levels of empathy, that the more empathic your nervous system is naturally within the state of your being, you hold a higher frequency within a state of you, let's use like autism, ADHD, spectrum type of things, neurodivergent. our brains work a different way. And so whenever we can soak in so much information from all sorts of different sources, and it depends on what those sources and those surroundings are utilizing and what they are. And so when I'm teaching about this in the classes, I use my life story as example, because that's all I have, right? I can only share my version of my understandings from my viewpoint, and I can only make connections with those by sharing those astrospects. So growing up, like, I cannot handle sports. I when I say I hate sports, I also understand the love that I have for sports. But to connect, if I had to say if I hate anything, I have multiple things, but it is sports. But it's because sports has streamed from massive woundings, massive hate, okay? And I say that because sports hold competition, but nothing in this world needs to hold competition, because nothing is better than one another. Sports should be played for fun, not for competition, because then that creates retaliation, and it creates a lot of nervous system dysregulation. It creates a lot of woundings emotionally, psychology, spiritually, all sorts of things. People pray before they play their games, but not in the right way, as in filling them up with the capability of, it doesn't matter who wins, let's play this game for fun, cover everybody in protection so no injuries occur. And then we have sports that people like specifically like enjoy watching people get hurt in. I'm not talking about MMA, I'm talking about other like team sports. And then we have the hierarchy of the team players, and then the team players, they're not always a family. And like, that's the part of the sports that, like, where's that? And why is the other part more important? And why is money based on it? Why is it not an equal proportion? Everybody's putting their heart into it. Everybody's putting their hard work into it. And then we have people not even able to play because they're not good enough. But there's such a better way, and I personally want to bring a new way to that. I've started doing it for dance. Same thing with dance. There's hierarchy and there's better than, but there's not any of that. There is strictly just dance, and there's strictly just art, and everybody is absolutely phenomenal in all of them. Just like everybody's absolutely phenomenal in sports. If you are enjoying it and you're having fun with it, you are phenomenal at it. But when we only understand one viewpoint from things, it's very hard to understand that concept. But my daughter was talking yesterday. She's 9, and she had went up to a little girl, and the mother, came up, and she was so thankful. She's like, your daughter did this. I was like, don't be thankful, to me, like, she did that. I didn't. I just told her that whenever she invites people to play, to be very gentle and to not be overbearing, because she has a lot of energy and very excitement, especially when she's playing, and especially when she's with her friends, not when she's by herself and trying to play with another child. She's more, reserved and held back at first. But yesterday we had groups of friends from our class, and so I was just like, yeah, like, invite her, to play with you, but just remember to, like, come gentle. And the mother came, and she's like, oh, your daughter just came up, and she was just very, very, open and very soft. And she just said, would you like to play with us? And then she even invited her to ask, like, what she wanted to play. And then, like, invited her fully in, not just, like, come play what we're playing, but, like, honored, like, what did she want to bring into the group, right? And, like, our children, I never had that conversation with our daughter, but my daughter told me yesterday, she's like, well, I put myself in her situation, and I allowed myself to feel what that would feel like, and I can connect with what she feels like because I can connect with how other people feel. This was my daughter speaking, and I told her, like, yes, that is called empathy, and that's being empathic. And then she said, and so then once I felt that, then I was able to feel into what that felt like inside of me and what I needed and what I would need in that moment. And when I needed within that moment and what you gave me, talking to me, then I knew what I needed. So what you did for me and what I needed was that. And what I do for myself is that. And so I went and I did that for her, and I asked her what she wanted to do and what she likes to do, versus asking her if she just wanted to play, because a lot of times kids ask me if I want to play, but I want to play with them, but I don't want to play with what they're playing. And I said, I completely understand that. I wanted to be friends with everybody, but I didn't enjoy the things that certain people were doing based on whatever it was. I was like, and that's okay, and if she would have said that she wanted to play something and you didn't want to play that, you can simply just say, okay, well, let's play that for a little bit, but like, I don't want to play that for long just because I don't really like it a whole lot, but I'll play it, with you. Or is there something we could maybe come up with together and this is what we were playing. Maybe we can join both of those together. And, so anyways, it's just simply that. It's just that awareness of our emotions instead of, and then we had another experience in, with the kids yesterday at the park. There was this girl running around and she had this mask on, and, she was just playing. Again, they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, I don't know. And they're having a great time. Well, there's these teenagers, again, children playing in masks at the park. Even I don't even care if I go to parks and play as a mask. Like, it doesn't matter what your age, but I'm saying in society, we're talking about children, we're playing, and these teenagers, probably 13, 14, maybe 15, were at the park. And once we were leaving, our children came up to us and they were saying that this girl was getting made fun of by these teenagers. And we had met this girl and she was absolutely superb, wonderful, a bright ball of sunshine. Like, I was so confused on why they were making fun of this girl. First of all, they were teenagers making fun of children. But understanding the school system, because that's what I grew up in. See, our children are homeschooled, so like they don't understand bullying, and they even asked us, like, why would somebody be treating somebody in this way? And so we connected it with like TV shows, because like I said, they don't experience it a whole lot, and it's just not something that occurs in our homeschooling groups. And anyways, we were explaining to them, like, people just believe in different things and live in different ways, and they're around different environments and different teachings, and so that's what they know, and so if they have a parent telling them that, like, hey, a child wearing a mask at a park is blah 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 blah, well, then they're going to alliterate that over and over and over, and there's not going to be an age barrier, because whenever that's done, they take away the humanity aspect of it and they implement a teaching that is not from the heart, that isn't because from the heart is acceptable of all, as long as no harm is being done. And what harm was it that a child was running around a park playing in a mask? And we as parents, we walked around looking for these teenagers because, we wanted to speak with their parents, and then 2, we wanted to speak with them with their parents, and the other parent, of the child who was getting made fun of by these teenagers, we couldn't find them. But we can take all of these experiences and allow our kids, and if we're teachers in schools, like we can use these parts that we all know that bullying occurs in our society, and that teachers as a whole really either aren't able to do much about it, or they aren't aware of how much power they have over it. Parents as well. But it simply goes down to the emotional awareness and teaching these simple little steps and awarenesses, and allowing different viewpoints of everybody's authenticity is the most beautiful thing that I personally even matters. Somebody's health and authenticity. I can't imagine anything else being more important than that, because that means the full totality of health and wellness as a wholeness is met with inside of everybody. And I just cannot fathom anything that is more vital than that. And their authenticity goes fully around in their own personal beliefs without any type of infrastructure being implemented in them, without them feeling a resonance of fullness within their heart and not fear. And as somebody who has always lived in a state of fear until I have worked through all of this, because I am a massively empathic person, the world has been a very scary place for me. But I can sit here, and God, I have went through some very traumatizing situations, and I've been able to release that fear and that anger and that sadness at exponential speeds. And I've always had the ability to forgive people from my heart for very extreme things. And I have been probably talked about in numerous cycles about probably people prejudging me. But when I love people for people. I connect with people as much as they allow me to connect with them, and I can feel their soul. It's if I am like friends with somebody, I connect with them on a soul level. Even in people who are just open to allowing that to happen, I connect with them on a soul level. Like I can see people on a soul level, and then on different boundaries of how they allow and want me within their energy and their maybe even unawareness, I can only connect with them on that level, right? But it doesn't mean that I don't love them, because I love all. It just means I can't deeply soul connect with them. And so when I love people, my friends, my family, like I want all of them, regardless of what has been done within an experience, because again, like nothing's been done to us. It's been done for us of the experience, not for us as in punishment, as in karma, but for the experience to be able to feel those deep, dark emotions, so that we can let go of those that have been holding us and our lineage back, that we've been passing on to generation and generation, that if we don't let it go, if we don't bring and allow it to come up and rise up into the light, into our heart, into our higher awareness, our truth, and our wisdom, we can then and only then be able to form a state of coherence from not connected. So if we allow ourselves to feel the love for the person, not the behavior, and be able to separate the two, being able to sit and understand how that person what that person experienced, allow you to feel what that would feel like if you experienced that. You then can begin to forgive them in the state of what forgiveness means. Now, we separated the behavior and the love of the emotion of the person, right? The behavior and the person is separate because the behavior is emotional awareness. And emotional awareness and behavior, when they're connected within the heart, they then can create the coherence of all the different retrospects of it. And then and only then can we either allow them into our lives or not into our lives, right? Based on how they are being within their behavior, emotions. But we cannot, in a state of what I call pureness, where we don't hold anger. Pureness is forgiveness, a state of forgiveness, a state of peace, where we don't hold any type of resentment, anger, sadness, fear, any type of hate for the other within how we feel within our heart for their soul, while we can resonate with how messed up their behavior may have been, while we are able to pull ourselves up out of the situation, of the emotion of it, and look at it as such, quote unquote, a movie. And we can simply see from there what we're needing to see, from the viewpoint we're needing to see it. Allowing ourselves to feel how we are really needing to feel it. And most of the time, it allows us to gain the awareness that we are needing to hold within inside of ourselves to release what is left, the residue, so that it doesn't affect us in any type of way. Okay? And then we form a boundary from there in the physical. So, and we cannot do that if we do not go back to the full understanding that we must understand that there is not just one rule or one portion of the 10 Commandments. There's multiples and multiple interpretations and multiple truths and multiple different atrospects that go hand in hand with it. So let's cover those again. Commandment number 4 is honor the mother, the father. Again, the self, the fullness, the mother, father of your birth, their birth, as well as yourself, especially if you are a parent, and honor the mother and father of your own children, of themselves. Honor that atrospect too. I forgot to even hit on that. Like I said, there's so much that goes into it, but even just understanding like the very, very basics of it. And then in the Buddhism, using your right speech, your beneficial timely, living in the present, and not speaking of past, but of emotion, of how you feel in the present now. Okay? While honoring yourself in a state of honesty that we talked about, and being able to hold a state of coherence in your honest state to then be able to judge where it is within inside of yourself that may need some quote unquote tweaking or healing, seeing, perceiving, that residue that's outside of you, connected with a different experience outside of yourself with somebody else, people, place, or thing. And then you pull yourself up out, and you can perceive the behaviors by allowing yourself to feel what it would be like if you experienced the things in the life that you are aware of that other person has experienced. And if you aren't aware, such as a bully at a park, of what it has experienced, what they have experienced, then you can be like, okay, well, maybe if they're getting made fun, or if they're making fun of somebody, maybe they get picked on at school, or maybe their parents somewhat like don't fully accept them or something, you know, like, and then sit with how that would feel like. And then and only then can you understand how to gain the justice. And this goes down into the Quran, honesty and justice. Justice and judgment are the same thing, but in holding a full container. You have justice at the top, you have judgment in the middle, and then you have punishment at the bottom. That's why I'm saying if punishment is granted, the other things need to be in that full cycle, and they need to be in a punishment speaking of why, and that can only be formed from pulling yourself up out of it within this emotional awareness atrospect, and being able to really hold yourself in this accountability. Again, this is a very simple structure of the 10 commandments of honoring your mother, father, remembering to keep yourself in the holy rest, your right speech and beneficial time in the Buddhism, being in the present, and then with the Quran's teaching, living in honesty and justice. We can go deeper within the yamas is moderation and using your intelligence and your integrity for a purposeful purpose. I was talking with my friend yesterday, and I was saying, you know, we were talking about how much damage that, you know, AI and stuff is doing to the planet and humanity. And I said, you know what, it's not a bad or good thing. It's the moderation and the usage of why it's being used. If it's being used to create goodness and betterness and flowingness and embodying a way to bring forth better for all, like, it's not a terrible thing, but it does need to be in moderation. It needs to be in awareness. And things like putting your face on like a Christmas card, like, and using a bottle of our fresh clean water while we're running out of it, like, that's just doing things out of unawareness and out of moderation. And as we see, and it's not really holding a purpose, right? And as we see in the yamas, like, that's strictly number 4 of the 10 commandments, but within a different part of a wholeness of what the commandments are, of what all of these rules are. Let's go into the niyama now. That we're just going to touch on this and end for this segment, and we'll go into more of this later, next series, and we'll do discussion as always after I get done off of here. But the niyamas one for number 4 is selfless giving to others. That also has to be done in balance. And what the yamas and niyamas within the Hindu knowingness of their infrastructure, of their beliefs, is that they have an inside belief and they have an outside belief. So they live in a fullness of what I can perceive as a duality of inside and outside, what I can share as in that atrospect. And whenever we look at what Christianity used to be before the Roman Empire implemented their theologies within it, we will notice that Christianity is exactly like what I am speaking about, emotional awareness, the chakras as far as the nervous system, and connecting with yourself and aligning with yourself and clearing and healing, becoming aligned internally so you can become aligned externally with it. But the inside part has all been, from my understanding and my remembrance of growing up as Catholic, has been completely removed ever since Roman Empire took over. So if we look at the opposite of honoring your mother and father, like I said, with the inside, that's the duality of that one. And then the Sabbath day to rest, to give your thanks and praise to your higher spirit. But the other part of that teaching, at least in the Catholic religion, was also removed, about honoring and caring and loving yourself as well. So I just wanted to touch on that really, really quickly. And that's why, at least I know for myself, that I didn't have boundaries and I didn't have self-respect and I didn't have love, because everything that I was taught was to do for another. And I wasn't taught how to do for myself. I had to teach myself how to do that through the lessons, and I don't like to use the word lessons, but through the experiences of my life with other people, being able to love them through it. And once I share my stories, people who know me, I have blown their mind already, but being able to understand, I guess, how I don't want to linger on too much, but being able to love people through it and being able to fully forgive them, as in a state of not just loving them while harming myself like I used to do, but now I can love them through it by honoring myself for being able to see and hold the compassion that I would also need within those moments, while I understand that I can only live within that state of giving